Hi, my name is Kelly Parsons, and today I'll be presenting on finding, hiring, and keeping the right candidate. This is going to be my final project for my Human Resources Management Winter 2019 class at Amberton University with Dr. Deanne Sanchez. So this topic today will be addressing hiring. So to hire someone, just to have a body in a role isn't helpful to the organization at all. It's definitely way more important to have a quality hire. Companies themselves, to get a quality hire, need to appeal to the candidates with their offer in the same way that a candidate needs to appeal to them with their resume and having met all of their qualifications. Signing the paper, once you find the right person, isn't enough to make sure that you keep this person. So this is about getting from the recruiting process to the offer to the hiring and retaining process. My hypothesis is that filling a role requires both searching for someone qualified and being able to offer them a competitive salary and benefits. Those are the two key things that I believe are important to getting someone to step into the role. We'll talk about the recruiting process, both what channels can be used to find a good candidate, and what are the areas that need to be focused on when you're looking for a candidate. We'll talk about the offer itself. Think about the legal considerations when making an offer, the salary and incentives, and other benefits to the employee. Lastly, we'll discuss retaining employees, the importance of a culture in the process of retaining somebody, the importance of the resource themselves for this process, and taking action, the ways in which you'll address retention. So first, we'll move on to recruiting. The recruiting, we'll talk about the channels of recruiting and the areas to focus on. So the channels, there are several, so just at a high level, one is social media and networking, and this can be a really helpful tool for finding qualified candidates who don't yet know they're looking for a job. Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Twitter are all amazing sources because people are constantly checking their sources on a daily basis, even when they're really not looking for a job themselves, and they could just stumble upon something that completely meets their qualifications that they might have an interest in. There are internet job boards. These are extremely effective, and most people know Monster and Indeed exist. So, I mean, they're just very well advertised. So they help to match the candidates with jobs that fit their qualifications. And since not many people use newspapers anymore, these methods reach a much larger audience, both in terms of geography and in qualifications. There are professional and career websites. There are, these are usually field or role specific, so they have a lot of members of certifications in a particular field, and a lot of times they post jobs that primarily pertain to those with experience in those positions. So one example is the Project Management Institute. They have a certification called the Project Management Professional, the PMP certification, and those are for project managers, and a lot of times they're highly sought out, and specific projects will only want to have PMP certified project managers. There's also Association Proposal Management Professionals. When you're looking for someone to fill a role of a proposal writer, you want someone who's in that organization because that person has a very particular skill set that applies to this job. E-videos are also really popular. A lot of times, an image or video will catch someone's eye a lot faster than a write-up would. So many companies, such as Monster and Career TV, will work with companies to put together a captivating video message for recruiting new candidates. Gamification is another method of recruiting. It's really unique and provides candidates with challenges to think outside the box and demonstrate their creative thinking abilities. It's a bit unorthodox, but if the company requires a role to be filled that will require a great deal of problem solving, this would be a really great interactive tool to find qualified candidates. Lastly, we'll talk about the college graduate enrollment program. So this is a unique option and it's tailored very specifically to a company's direct needs. So there's one study by S. Jones that takes into consideration the field of nursing. This one, the industry itself needs to be prepared because there's a majority of people in the field are set to retire soon. So they need to start planning for the future. So it suggested that they start to pull in recent graduates early, even though, you know, within 2 years of starting, they tend to leave, and they require more time and training because they can't just be thrown out in the field of nursing and healthcare right out of graduate school. So this hospital decided to revamp a program to take in new graduates. And what they would do is take people in and provide them with a formal mentoring program and give them simulation options so they could get really good hands-on experience both with customers and with the hospital itself. So they have a really good idea of what's expected in the job, and they're properly trained, and so they end up being more confident, and it resulted in much higher confidence and retention rates of these new nurses. So that's likely due in large part to feeling that the employer has really invested in them and cares about their growth, which is true, and it also benefits the hospital because now that they have really qualified nurses working there. Also, we'll talk about the areas of focus for recruiters to focus on. Recruiters can benefit from learning what their current employees appreciate most about their jobs. You know, they can survey them and see if they enjoy working from home, if they enjoy, you know, the type of atmosphere that the company has, you know, they appreciate all the opportunities for growth and so on. There was a survey done for students that were entering the accounting field, and they were ranking their interest in different characteristics and said why they were applying to different industries, private or public firms. And salary and compensation obviously was way up there, but work-life balance was also one of the top motivators. So the importance of a salary can really vary greatly depending on the industry. For example, in the science and research industry, those employees tend to earn nearly double what people do in other occupational fields. So that's also something to consider when you're looking out there and trying to see who's qualified for your role. And potential new employees, you know, rank their priorities differently. They have different values, and that could definitely change the recruiting discussion. If there's a lot of new, younger employees, they might want the option to work from home and never have to come to an office because they prefer telecommuting if necessary. A lot of new employees are looking for a job title, and then they want a way to grow. So having a really clear growth path for these new employees is important. We'll talk about how they manage the growth, and that would be through the method of talent management. At its core, it's an organization's policies, procedures, and processes in place to encourage employee growth within the industry, within the company. A strategic approach definitely includes has a direct correlation between employee skills and company needs. And so those two things coupled together is going to be directly tied to company success. So talent management encourages the review of the most critical and influential roles and working to encourage employee growth specifically within those roles and giving them the opportunity. While focused on the individual, it's of the utmost importance, of course, that the career growth directly benefits the company, or it's not going to do much for the company itself. So this is one of those things that could be highlighted in the recruiting stage to let future employees know that there's room for them to grow in the company. There's a place for them. It's in the company's best financial interest to invest in existing employees who are already doing a great job, but that groundwork needs to be laid out in the recruiting process so they know what's coming up. Then there's the offer. So you find the right employee. They have the years of experience you hope they have the references that you want them to have. They have everything that you need. And now it's a matter of what you're going to offer them to work for you. So when you make an offer to an employee, it's with the intention of keeping them. This is a long-term commitment, right? It took a long time to find somebody. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of money. So when you make someone an offer, it's because you want to keep them. So the HR team really needs to consider all the internal restraints that they have, like, do they only have a limited budget? Are they allowed to offer, certain benefits like working from home? Like, is that an option? So they need to review those things before they can make the offer. So a few things to consider are the legal considerations for the offer, the salary and incentives, and then other benefits. The laws and regulations. This includes any federal and state laws, which are very frequently changing. So it's very important to consider. It doesn't, just because a month has gone by, there's a chance that something's changed. So it's always just important to double check those things. And one of the biggest laws to be aware of is the Fair Labor Standards Act, which was implemented in 1938. This sets a good set of rules around minimum wages, child labor, and overtime pay. And obviously this has changed throughout the years. Our minimum wage is not the same as it was in 1938. So minimum wage is determined by Congress, and it varies between hourly jobs, waiting, and tipped waiting jobs. So that's also something to consider when you're fulfilling a role. There are federal minimums, but some states have different minimum rules, and those are usually higher if they're different. So those supersede the federal rates. So it's important to keep that in mind also. FLSA also regulates child labor. So there are rules around teenagers in the United States, for example, can have a job at 14, but maybe they can't work a certain number of hours a week or can't work past a certain time during the week because they're still in school. And it also talks about exempt and non-exempt jobs, which has to do with overtime pay. So some jobs, manual labor ones or workers or in an hourly basis, might require overtime, but for people who work from home, their job fluctuates between requiring 20 to 60 hours a week, depending on the workload. They might not have the option to have overtime pay. So the salary. Ultimately, money isn't everything, but it is extremely, extremely important, and anyone will tell you it's a factor. And in this day and age, absolutely anybody can look for a better paying job just with a Google search or one of those other methods we discussed earlier. So, just one example is these schools in China, they're experiencing high teacher turnover because more teachers are looking up salaries in different schools and jumping ship to get the better pay. So we talk about how it's important that money is not just thrown out there, but strategically offered to an employee. So it's suggested that firms tie the compensation to performance goals or something called pay for performance system. So, they have high goals for the firm, and those goals are in harmony with the goals of the overall company. So this system is financial incentive for them, but also higher goals for the company itself. The only downfall to this one was that in a public sector system, it doesn't seem to be that effective, but it does seem to be rather effective in every other industry. So that's the only one to look out for. So in terms of considering financial compensation, there's external equity, which has to do with the competitive of what's being offered to the rest of the market. So that's in that situation where in China, the teachers are looking at other school districts and finding they're making more money. So internally want to do research on your competitors and see what's being offered for the role in other places. Then there is also internal equity, which has to do with feeling properly compensated within the company. And this, for example, there was a girl who was working at a grocery store and she was making $8 an hour, and then she was hired they were making $9 an hour. So she confronted her boss regarding the pay differential, and he wasn't willing to give her a raise, so she left to go work for another place that would pay her more than what she was training new people. And with most jobs now, the competitive 401k, healthcare, vision, and dental packages are standard and basically expected of a full-time job, but not necessarily part-time ones. So there's some research that should be done there when you're making an offer to a new employee. And then, of course, there are other benefits to a job, which may or may not be as tangible. Work-life balance, for example, is something that's considered very important to new employees. So someone who is considering a job and then has the option to work from home a couple days, especially someone with children, they might be more likely to accept the role because they have that flexibility. Offering, the right training to ensure success, as we discussed earlier, for growth in a role is important. And knowing that this is going to be an option is important to new employees as well. Additionally, places like Coca-Cola offer their employees, male or female, paid parental leave when they have a baby. And this lets people have time with their families and have flexibility with their life and their job, and they're paid that time. So this is the kind of new age 21st century offering that other companies should consider when they have a new hire, and existing employees as well. Ultimately, job satisfaction is a very personalized opinion that is formed. So it has culture, benefits, vacation, sick days, personal value, etc. It's all tied into what someone calls their personal job satisfaction. So ultimately, employers need to tailor their benefit packages to what their employers need. And again, we're in an ever-changing environment, and this is an ever-changing landscape. So it's important to be flexible with what those offerings are. And as new things come up, offer them to existing employees as well. Those offerings. So now we have the employee, we gave them an amazing offer. Now we want to keep them. So this is a discussion on how to retain their current talent, because, well, for one thing, it saves a lot of time and money, because the whole process of hiring and recruiting takes a lot of time and money, right? So you want to hang on to the people that you do get. Employee retention can be critical to an organization, and it's more important than the hiring process just by itself. And it encompasses all the policies and strategies that companies implement to keep qualified and motivated employees working for them for as long as possible. So we'll discuss the culture, resources, and actions to take for retention. Culture seems to be the most important component of job satisfaction. This has been across the board in various studies. It seems like this is the #1 most important thing to people. This is beyond salary, this is beyond benefits, it's the entire work culture, personalities, the whole nine. So companies can begin to work towards retention by building an organizational culture that encourages retention. So a culture that's all excited to have new people and to grow them and keep them in their organization and have future options for them is really ideal. And this can't just begin from the bottom up. This is the opposite. It comes from the top. So with CEOs and other higher up managers being the ones that are implementing this type of attitude within the organization, it trickles down to the rest of the company. Accounting students who are about to enter the field actually ranked culture as to be the 3rd most important aspect of an organization where they intend to apply. This is both in large and small organizations, and this was after right under salary. So this is extremely important to people, even who haven't been out in the field for long. So growing this culture, it's really important to have a strong level of communication to understand the goals and vision of the entire company for everybody. So everyone has the same mission, they all know where they're going, with the same goals. And lastly, another way of encouraging a stronger culture is through the use of a mentoring program. The example before with the nurse and taking students straight from graduate school to become nurses and working with them and giving them hands-on experience in the hospital is really important. And it's also really important in the education administration realm, because that seems to be another industry that struggles with retention. So as part of retention itself, one of the most important things is, of course, the resources. So finding and retaining qualified resources are key to a company's success. They are the heart and soul. They are assets for pretty much any organization. So having training programs like that nursing program is really going to get people confident and comfortable within their role. Offering any other training programs is important, and just keeping everyone focused. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get some feedback from current employees to see how they feel about the current state, how they feel about the culture, how they feel about their benefits, how they feel about their compensation. Maybe not so explicitly asking, are you happy with how we pay you, but something along those lines. And taking that feedback, you can plan for new packages to offer new hires and give the option to existing employees. The talent management we touched on before as a whole is crucial and actually probably the most important piece of retaining employees. There's a very strong connection between talent management being done well and employee retention. This has nothing to do with company size, but it'll reach everywhere throughout the company. Employees are the heart of an organization, so maintaining them and having everyone happy and long-term staying with the company can only benefit the company's pipeline and has a direct impact on overall revenue. So for a company to be successful, each employee must feel like they're included in the organization and that their contributions directly are tied to the success of the company. So they want to feel like they're important and that what they do means something. And it does, because otherwise you wouldn't have their role, right? So it's important to communicate that at every level. In one study, They looked at 365 different companies and saw that there were 4 different areas of talent management, career development, employee engagement, performance management, and competency mapping. And all 4 of those areas greatly impacted how the individuals felt about their company and were the reasons that they stayed within it. Feeling that your efforts are recognized and rewarded is one of the biggest factors for motivating people in the workplace. So human resources teams should really focus on a strong talent management program to keep employees feeling engaged and rewarded for their efforts. So lastly, in conclusion, the original hypothesis is that filling a role requires both searching for someone qualified and being able to offer them competitive salary and benefits. And it's true, but a new hire is more than just filling a role. It's adding a new asset to your organization. So only focusing on a competitive salary and benefit isn't really enough. It'll get them in the role, but it's not going to keep them there. It's really important to have that strong organizational culture, and to have room for growth, and to have everyone on board with the same mission, goals, and vision. So it's not wrong, but there's definitely more to it. The 21st century is, absolutely technologically advanced, and there's so many options to learn more about this recruitment process. So with the internet and social media, it was more limited to a geographical area. But now, the world is flat, so these advances allow candidates to see every job and put every organization on the radar. So a competitive salary and benefits will get them started, but it's not enough to keep them. So working the organizational culture from the inside out is key. And coupled with competitive salary and benefits, organizations can develop long-lasting and effective teams within the 21st century workspace. Because the recruiting and retention side of things are both crucial to the business almost simultaneously. And having a strong recruiting and offering process is important for the business. And honestly, it's just helpful for themselves because of how much time and effort it takes. You might as well just do it right the first time and get a really highly qualified candidate in there, make them really happy with what you're offering, and get them set up for success for the future. Thank you very much for your time. Here are the resources that I used for this project, and I hope that this was helpful. Thank you very much.